Hello everybody and welcome to Planet Coaster. That's right, a new game on the channel. We are going to be delving into Planet Coaster for a little bit. Now this series is going to be a little bit of a different format than the rest of my series. Obviously we have different kinds of games on this channel. We play City Skylines, which is obviously the most popular game on my channel by far. City Skylines is one of the games I used to play, or still do like to play, to relax, you know, to just sink some time in the game, sink an hour or two in the game, watch some YouTube in the meantime, or maybe listen to a podcast or an audiobook. And that is the way I've been playing City Skylines. We do a little bit of an intro, then we make some time lapses in which you see me build bigger projects in less amount of time. And then we combine it all into a video with some commentary at the start, at the end, in the middle. And we make a nice little City Skylines video out of it. This format is going to be a little bit different because the way I usually play Planet Coaster is that it's basically the same way that I play City Skylines. I can sink some hours into it, but the progress during that time is often minimal. Often I get caught up staring at my coasters or riding them in first person or watching the lights at night. So the way we are going to be playing this game is we start with a little intro each episode, and then I do my building stuff, and it doesn't matter how long that takes. It doesn't matter if that takes an hour, doesn't matter if that takes 5 hours, doesn't matter if it takes a day. And once I think I've made sufficient progress, I will then show you what progress I made, and you know, I will walk you through it, explain what I built, why I built it, how I built it, and hopefully in that way we can come to a nice little cozy park together. Another thing that's going to be different in this series is going to be that I plan to do this in 2 languages. So you are obviously watching the English version, but I am also going to do a Dutch version of the exact same video. There will be some differences because I won't write a script for each episode that I have to meticulously follow. So my Dutch explanation parts and the English explanation parts will roughly be the same, but maybe I'll explain a little more detail in the one than in the other. So yeah, it's going to be on a separate channel, so don't worry, you won't get recommendations for this series in a language you don't understand. I'm going to start a new channel just for my Dutch videos, but I want to do a little bit more for the Dutch YouTube community out of there. I watch a whole lot of Dutch YouTubers. Some of them even play Planet Coaster as well. So yeah, hopefully that will be a success as well. Now, speaking of this park, what are we going to build? Now, first of all, where are we? We are on... I made this map a while ago. I think we are on the Deciduous map. And what I mean by I made this map a while ago is that I chose the textures that I want to use for this map a while ago. So this is the default grass and rock work for this map, but then I substituted one, I think the darker rock, for the subtropical rock. I added this tropical grass texture. And then one thing I love to do in Planet Coaster is I want to use the mud texture always, because I hate it when you have a forest area with lots of trees, lots of bushes, with very little sunlight, and then there's grass on the bottom. So most of the time I put this down as my base layer, and then I use the leaves texture to, you know, not that intense, but sprinkle some leaves around. And then if we add a whole lot of trees on top of this, it makes it look a lot more realistic in terms of, you know, how the soil looks beneath it, especially if you play a little bit with the height as well and with some rocks and other textures. I think that looks a whole lot better than just having the grass texture on the ground. So that is the way the terrain is going to look in this map. And what are we going to build? Well, I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't played this game in a while. I think I probably haven't played this game in like 6 months or so. So I am a little bit rusty. I have to get back in the game a little bit. I'm thinking we're not going to fill the entire map. We're not going to build a mega park. we are going to build, maybe we take the selection tool, maybe something like this size or this size. Depends on how far we get. But the way I like to build in Planet Coaster is I like to build in a very detailed way, so it looks very real, but it looks theme park real. So if I need, for instance, let's say I need a house, but that is only going to be visible from one side, then I'm going to build that house very detailed from the front, almost like a facade, and then the back and the sides of the house will be very basic. Exactly the same as it would be in any real theme park. Only the sides that are visible to the public are very detailed and very, you know, theme parky, and all the rest, it is there, but I mean, it will be a real house in this example, but the back and the sides won't have any detailing at all. And also, I do try to keep it in scale. I mean, if you have ever watched a Planet Coaster video, you know that this guy is our best friend. I try to build in this scale, but if it so happens to be easier, or it doesn't really matter, or it's better gameplay wise to build in a little bit bigger scale, then I will build in a little bit of bigger scale. So I like to call that building style believable. It looks real, it could be real, but the scale will probably be a little bit off here and there. And then for the theme, I thought, since this is the first Planet Coaster episode, the first Planet Coaster series that I'll be putting out on YouTube, I have built quite a few things that are now in the workshop. But for this first series, I thought maybe why not use my favorite theme park as an inspiration for this one and make it Efteling themed. I don't know how many of you know Efteling. The Dutch viewers will probably know Efteling very well, because Efteling is the biggest theme park in the Netherlands, one of the biggest in Europe, rumored to be the inspiration for Disney. So make of that what you will. And in Efteling, they are currently replacing the Spookslot, which was a very cool, very old attraction, with a new version. And the old version was sort of a walkthrough attraction where you would go into an old castle, an old haunted castle. Then you would get into a big room with windows, and it was this huge diorama with ghosts and a graveyard and a monastery, creepy music, creepy lights. It would be the whole cool light and music show. And they are now replacing that with a newer attraction in the same sort of style, but I think that would be a very good, very great, very nice way to start off this episode for our first YouTube series. I don't have a name yet. A name will probably come to me once I'm building. Yeah, I think Spookslot. It's not going to be a recreation of Spookslot. It's going to be a building themed on Spookslot. Why am I saying Spookslot? It's Spookslot in Dutch. It's not going to be a recreation. It's going to be based off of it. It will be recognizable, I think, once it's done, but it won't be a one-to-one recreation. So yeah, that is how we are going to start this build. So I don't have anything else to add. I think I've talked for a good 10 minutes again already. So yeah, let's get started. And once I'm happy with the progress I made, I will see you again. Alright, and here we have our first update. Now we're looking at it from a visitor's perspective at the moment. So this is the front of the building. For those of you who do not know the original Spookslot, this was original a walkthrough attraction. And this right here, it's not a one-to-one recreation. It's just inspired by this right here. Was in the original attraction was the entrance. You would go in here, you would wait until you got into the room with the show. And then you got seated, and then there would be this huge light show with music and special effects. It was awesome. In this build, however, we don't have anything built in here. I just added a toilet block on the inside of here so that people actually do walk into this, and it looks like it's being used, but it's actually just a toilet. And then, as you can see, the texture of the building, it's meant to look like it's plaster, stucco, on the wall that is crumbling and falling off. So what I did was I built a stone wall with these rough brick wall pieces, and then I used mostly windows, the backs of these windows, and I slid them into the wall to make it look like stucco, but I kept a few little places open so that it looked like some was falling off. And then for these brick textures, these are actually just the bottoms of chimneys, which have a stucco texture that are shoved right in there to make it all blend and look like one nice big wall. Excellent. And then on this side, here you can see what I was talking about textures on the ground. I think this looks much better if there is a lot of vegetation. If this were just grass, I don't think that looks great. So I made it so that it looks really overgrown. It's supposed to be an abandoned, you know, run-down castle that is at its last legs. So there's lots of green stuff growing everywhere. I used very rough trees, very thick bushes, stuff like that. And then on this side, made a fence, made it look like it is falling apart, crumbling down. Again, lots of bushes, lots of trees. Yeah, to make it look really, really overgrown. And then if we take a look over here on the real attraction, on the real Spookslot, this was a pathway in which you could get to the other side of the Spookslot without actually having to go through the main attraction if you didn't want to. In the original attraction, this is just a walkway, but in this version, this is the walking attraction. So I built 3 little viewing areas, one with a bunch of snakes, one with a bunch of skulls and skeletons, and one with a clock that looks like it's floating in space. These really look better in the dark, but they're not too bad in this lighting either. Then on this side, of course, some decorations, some torches. I replaced the fire of the torch with a candle because the actual fire is way too big to have in here. Then of course you have a couple beds hanging around. And then if we walk all the way down through the other side, here on the right the fence continues, still broken down, still overrun, still a whole lot of trees, thick bushes, thick trees. And then on this side we have a little plaza area. I still have to add some chairs and some tables over here. But in the real Spookslot, on the back side, you would have a little coffee corner where you could order coffee and sandwiches. And I tried to recreate that as best as I could. This is actually very faithful to the original backside of the Spookslot. And this over here on the real attraction, I believe this was the exit. So if you went through the attraction, you would come out on this side over here. Unfortunately, we don't have anything in this building, so these aren't used at the moment. I'll probably add a staff building inside here, so it looks like at least staff is going through the door, so it looks like these are staff doors. And then, yeah, if you take a look inside, you can see nothing in here at the moment. This will also give you a good view of how I built this building. You can see I used lots of window pieces. This part of the building alone is like 1700 objects. Here you have the toilet block from the front, the Wurst block, Professor Wurst from the back. And these are the viewing areas in the tunnel. But yeah, nothing inside. And again, lots of trees, lots of overgrown stuff on the walls. Lots of walls looking like they're crumbling. So yeah, and then if we take a little look from a little further back, we zoom out a little bit, you can see how the building as a whole is made. Obviously the roof isn't detailed, it's just there to have a roof, because you can't see it from the ground. Back of the building looks like this. This tree is a little bit in the way of the view, but there was a tree at this location in the real Spookslot as well. So I've kept that. And then if we take a look around on the front, this is how the front looks from a little bit further away, zoomed out. As you can see, lots of vegetation on the sides. It is really meant to be just an overgrown castle in the middle of the woods that is, you know, abandoned, crumbling down in places, maybe a little bit spooky. So yeah, I think we did an excellent job of capturing the feeling of the original building without making a one-on-one replica. Excellent. And then, as you may have noticed, I have put down a whole lot of lights. So let's take a look in the dark. So of course we have some street lights dotted around. Make sure there is enough light to see by for the guests. And then these spotlights, most of them are now still here in the front. These will be hidden in whatever will be on this side of the path. I also hid some in the bushes over here, on the roofs as well. And I gave them these bluish, purplish, greenish lights. And I think that looks really good. It looks really spooky, especially from a little bit of a distance when the light colors, you know, blend in a little bit. The bluish, purplish is really spooky at night. And then if you take a look inside the tunnel over here, this is how the viewing boxes look at night. So we have snakes, not really anything special. We have these skulls with a whole lot of bright colors in this skull for some reason, while all the others are just bland and laying down. Then we have the clock, which is illuminated bright red, and which will, there's a timer on this, with this will sound on, I think on midnight, I've said it. And then on this side, again, more spotlights over here on the ground. They will be hidden in whatever comes here. This will very much be a first-person park that must be enjoyed in first person, at least to get all the details. And again, we use these bluish, purplish, greenish colors to light up the facade of the building in those colors. Give it that little spooky look. And as I said, you know, this side of the building is detailed, the front is detailed. But if we look over here, there's almost no detail over here. I just added some plants to the side, so it doesn't really, you know, look like one giant white area. Actually, it looks a little bit greenish with these trees in front of it. It hardly draws the attention at all. So yeah, really happy with this first iteration of this building. As I said, it's a walkthrough attraction with a shop and a toilet. Then on this side, I already put down some ground textures. I think this is going to be where at least a part of the railroad track is going to go, and it will cross the road over here. And where it goes from there in that direction, don't know yet. Where it goes in this direction, don't know yet. I haven't decided what kind of attractions I want to put around it. Maybe I'll put a little bit of a lake over here. Or a pond, not a lake, a pond. With a pond here, then an attraction here. And the railroad curving off to this side. And then maybe a coaster over here. Not quite sure yet. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, this was the very first iteration. Now, I did want to... was maybe a little bit of a stupid idea. The original Spookslot is a light and music show. But the music show is inside. It's like this big diorama. And I had the idea of maybe turning this whole building into a show. So instead of just using the lights to light it up a little bit in spooky colors, actually put some music under it. Have the lights flicker, have some thunder roaring, stuff like that. But that turned out to be a little bit too ambitious. So that's not what we are going to do. I will keep that in mind though for future episodes. Maybe we'll do that somewhere in a future episode, but don't think we're going to do that today. Yeah, this is the first iteration. Really pleased with how it looks. Only thing that is still missing is some music. We do have some background sound effects already from these ravens and from the snakes that are hissing away in here. But yeah, it does need a little bit music, so that is, as a guest, if you're walking here, especially in the tunnel, this especially needs music, so that it has this little spooky feel of music. So that is one thing that we're going to do in the next iteration, and then yeah, I will check back in with you once I have something new and worthwhile to add. Alright, and here we are with our third and final update of the episode. We are here at the back of the Spookslot. Feels weird saying it in Dutch, but also feels weird saying Spookslot, because I know how it's pronounced in Dutch. Anyway, first big update you probably noticed is the music. I have added speakers to this building, and we are now playing music around and inside this building, so that we have a little bit of atmosphere makes it a little bit more cozy, a little bit more believable. You know, if you are in a theme park, you often hear music everywhere, especially around buildings like this. And then if we take a look to our left, of course, this is the big new addition for the Spookslot. There's a small lake. I wouldn't call it a lake, it's more like a pond over here. And we added some chairs and some tables over here, people to sit at. I deliberately kept the vegetation between the pond and this little plaza over here as low as possible. I didn't want to ruin the view with lots of, you know, tall bushes and tall trees, so it's all very low to the ground. But I still wanted to make it look as if, you know, it's pretty overgrown. It hasn't been, you know, it hasn't been serviced in a couple of years. Just like this, I think this one looks very overgrown. Makes a very good impression of something that hasn't been touched in a couple of years. Nature is growing back, and I wanted to do the same over here. I just didn't want to ruin the view. Excellent. Then of course, if we take a look at the passageway here, added speakers in here too, added speakers at the front as well. And then if we take a look over here and we follow the path, we can see on the left over here there is a small dock with a small rowing boat. Obviously it's not a real attraction, but you can imagine that when the Spookslot was actually inhabited by people lived here, this would be a cool little place, you know, to get into your boat, row up into the middle of the pond and cool off on a hot summer's day, maybe catch a fish or two. And then on this side, you can already see it, there is a railroad crossing. Now the railroad crossing does have these two things. I am totally not fine with how they look at the moment, but they are what I wanted to show you at this point. So if we take a look at the railroad over here, we can take a peek over to the right. There we see the train standing, waiting in the station. This is not where the station is going to be, by the way, but I needed a train to test the railroad out. So if we put this one on test, and we get back into our view, and the train is coming. We can already hear him coming from the right. Nice old-fashioned steam train. Here he comes. And once he gets here, we have the lights and the bells going off. If we go back real quick over to the plaza on this side, we can see that the train continues alongside the pond, keeps driving, nice little view. Obviously until the point where it crashes, because there's no more railroads over there. But yeah, that is how this train is going to work. And then if we take a look over here, get back down through the tunnel, and we get back to the front over here, you can see, you can hear there's music over here as well. Not much else has changed on this side. There's the station for the train. As I said, that is not going to stay there. But if we take a quick trip back through the tunnel over here, this is where we come out, and this is an absolutely gorgeous view if you ask me, with the pond on this side, little area for to sit in the shade for some coffee or some sausages. And then if we continue our park, obviously there are going to be attractions and rides on the other side of the pond as well, but there are also going to be attractions on this side. And if we take a look, you can see that all the trees, all these fences, all these bushes, they are effectively blocking our view from this complete side of the theme park. So if we were to create a new attraction over here, which we will, and it would be a different theme than the Spookslot, which it probably will be, you will still be immersed when you are leaving the Spookslot over here, because this little plaza, this is still, you know, part of it. Basically until you round the corner here, basically until you cross the railroad, you are inside the themed area for the Spookslot. Then if we take a look over here, and we make a turn to our left, here we have some seats, some tables for people to sit down on when they buy something to eat or to drink over here. And if we continue on walking, you can probably already see it through the trees, through the bushes. We have the first ride in our theme park. It is a roller coaster. We can see it from the plaza over here. I like the way how this is tucked behind the building and the trees, so that even if you are, you know, enjoying the ambience of the Spookslot, you can still see the coaster through the trees, which is obvious, of course. That is what happens in theme parks. You can see coasters, you can see, you know, viewing towers, you can see drop towers, you can hear things in the distance, but I don't think this takes away anything of the ambience of what we have going on here, even with that massive drop going down, yeah, and seeing it through the bushes. So if we zoom out a little bit and take a bit of a closer look to our coaster, you can see that this is a pretty big coaster. I tried to build it as compact as possible, but I'm not very good at building coasters, and I'm even worse at building small, compact micro coasters. So the coaster type that we have is the BOA inverted two-seater coaster. I only replaced the train with a four-seater equivalent. The reason I chose this coaster type is because it's one of the smaller coaster types in terms of, you know, track size. We don't have any supports or anything just yet because we're all going to make those manually. I think this is an excellent first addition to the park. Now you may be wondering, wasn't this an Efteling inspired build, or wasn't this going to be an Efteling inspired park? And to that the answer is still yes. As you may know, the very first roller coaster in Efteling was the Python, and the Python is a very classic roller coaster. It was actually the very first coaster I went on that went upside down. That's a nice little fact. So when I went to look at the real life counterpart of this roller coaster, so in the game it's called the BOA, and as you might know, all coasters inside as you may know, all coasters in Planet Coaster are modeled after a real life version of that coaster. They just have a different name in the game, probably to avoid licensing fees and stuff like that. But when I looked it up on RCDB, I noticed that there is actually only one coaster in the world that is that uses this type of track and train, and that is called the Anaconda. And it's located in South Africa in Gold Reef City. It has been operating since 1999, and since the first coaster in Efteling was called Python and the real life version of this coaster is called Anaconda, I thought that was a nice little coincidence. They're both named after snakes. And then I started looking around in the menus, and I remembered that there was a coaster. I don't know if it was a DLC or a free update or promotional thing or something, but there is a coaster in game that's called the Copperhead Strike. And the Copperhead Strike is a recreation of an actual coaster somewhere in a United States theme park, not sure where. But the Copperhead Strike is obviously also a snake's name. So I thought, you know what, Efteling's first coaster was named after a snake. The only coaster of this type in the real world is named after a snake. Why don't we name our first coaster after a snake as well, and use the name Copperhead Strike? And since we are using the name Copperhead Strike, we can use this awesome little cool sign that is in the game. This is not a Thememaker's Toolkit item. This is not a custom thing. This is just an official Copperhead Strike sign. I think this sign is absolutely beautiful. So this is what we're going to be using as the logo for our roller coaster. But by doing so, we are a little bit constricted to the color scheme of this logo, which is this coppery color for the snake and this greenish color for the letters. In real life, Copperhead Strike is Wild West themed. So lots of wood, lots of desert, lots of cactuses. And of course, Efteling does not have a ride that is Wild West themed. There simply isn't one. So I got to thinking, what is a ride in Efteling that matches or resembles, at least close to, the theming of the original Copperhead Strike? And I remembered that there is the Piranha in Efteling. And the Piranha is a wild water river rapids, and its theme is Mexican or Spanish, something in that direction, I think Mexican. And just like a Wild West theme, it is set in a desert. There are lots of rocks, lots of waterfalls, a lot of cacti. Color scheme matches, you know, the copper color, the reddish color of the rocks with the greenish color of the vegetation. So that is going to be the theme for this roller coaster. So it's doubly inspired by Efteling. The name is an inspiration taken from the first coaster in Efteling, namely Python. And the theming is going to be inspired by the Piranha ride. And if I can swing it, I don't know if I will be able to, but if I can swing it, I will even combine this coaster with a log flume so that this footprint of this coaster is not only taken up by this coaster in itself, but also by another attraction. So there are 2 attractions in this footprint. No promises though. I am not very good at those types of things, but I do want to challenge myself a little bit. So that is what we are going to attempt in the next episode. So we take a close look at this coaster. I didn't want to make it too high. This one is about 20 meters high, I think. And as we take a look at it in relation to the Spookslot, it's already pretty high. This was basically the highest I was willing to go for a coaster that is so close next to a Spookslot. Then we have the first drop here that rolls nicely over into a looping, which goes into a, I don't know how to call this. It's a turn for going up alongside the pond and down into the brakes again. Obviously, everybody is going to want to see what it looks like in first person, so let's take a quick test ride. As you can hear, no music on the coaster yet, no theming yet, no support yet. It's still flying in the air. Now we're going to build all those things, don't worry. We're going to be theming it very thoroughly. We're going to be building our own supports. And here we go, first drop to our left. Which nicely flows into a loop. A little bit slow to loop, but that's what makes it exciting. Then into those turns, once more up. Then over the pond over here. It looks like you're splashing your feet in the water, but obviously there's enough room left. Into the brakes. And then we roll on back into the station. Excellent. So that is the coaster. So looking at everything that we've done today, I think this is an excellent first episode. We did much more than I anticipated that we would do in the first episode. I anticipated just to build Spookslot today, maybe a little bit of nature around it, but I didn't anticipate to get this far, so that is a very nice first step. Next episode, obviously, we are going to continue with the coaster. Obviously, we're going to have to build some supports, build some theming, and yeah, also continue finishing off this pond area. Excellent. So that is going to be it for today. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.